Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the host and the co-chair of today's webinar, and my name is Karen Mann, and I have with me my co-chair, Sadita Hassi. We represent the Human Development and Leadership Division of the American Society for Quality. This is a global division aiming to enrich the personal and professional lives of our members and non-members across the global community. We continuously look for new speakers within the range of our body of knowledge, which can be found in my ASQ HD&L community site, and we host monthly webinars. If you're interested to know someone or you know of someone that is interested, we would be happy to review their application. Before we begin today's webinar, let me go over some webinar rules. If there is any question or comment, please type under question tab and we will answer the questions throughout, and we will have a Q&A session after our speaker for 15 minutes to go into the details of your questions. Those who attend 40 minutes will receive 0.1 CEU through an email, which you can save and use to claim credit with ASQ. Now, Sadita and I are delighted to introduce you to our guest speaker for tonight and use this hour to reflect on the knowledge of Dr. Joe Fierro.
Hey.
Hi, Joe. And
Hi, Joe.
something
there.
happened to my screen. There you go. I was going to introduce Joe. So Joe's affiliation with ASQ began in the early 1990s when he served as ASQ Secretary and Section Chair in Southwest Louisiana. His experience with influencing others include military, government, and corporate settings in frontline through execute suite duties. Highlights of Dr. Joe's credentials include honorably retired U.S. Coast Guard officer, corporate people performance and development manager, master level organizational performance consultant, state of Louisiana economic development consultant, U.S. National Quality Award senior examiner, and CAO principal consultant, training and coach of Fierro LS. In addition, he's the recipient of numerous individual, team, and business unit awards, a regional quality award for enterprise excellence, and a finalist in 2 national leadership award programs. Joe in Excellence, a Master of Science in QSM, a Master Black Belt in Lean Six Sigma, and a Merit of Professional Leader Team and Organizational Certificate. Joe, it is amazing, and I'm super excited to hear the wealth of knowledge you're going to share with us. So the floor is all yours.
Oh my goodness, thank you so very much. And in the words of Tony Stark from Iron Man, it's great to be back. Hey, listen, hello and welcome everyone from around the world. We're so glad, I'm so glad, and I know that the ASQ is as well, to have you take some time out of your busy schedules to attend this webinar. Now, I'm going to do my part. I've done the research, I've done the homework, put together the PowerPoint slideshow, and I'm going to bring you some information that I'm convinced that you're going to be able to use right after we're finished. That's what I believe, but that's only half of the equation. The other part is up to you. You've got to be ready to come to the table and think, how might I use this? Or, whoa, Dr. Joe, I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to put that to use because of that, whatever scenario it is you're dealing with. That's okay. Those are the things that we need to know so that we can work together in collaboration to address those challenges that you're facing. That's what I love about the ASQ. That's what I loved about the ASQ back in the early 90s, and I love about it today, is the opportunities for us to network, share experiences and solutions, maybe a shoulder to cry on from time to time, I get it, but then find those viable, actionable ideas that we can use, exercise, to strengthen our abilities as excellence practitioners, quality managers, executives, or frontline staff to advance the performance of our organizations and our teams. So much of this is dependent upon our own individual capabilities. You know, as I'm listening to the introduction about my background, I start to realize I've been at this for 40 years now. That's a long time, man. So I'm gonna work really hard to make sure I distill that into 40 minutes worth of information, and give you something that you could take away now. Now, I make no apologies for doing my homework, for learning what are the national expectations, the global intent, strategic intent of the organizations I work for full time, or the organizations I serve, whether it was military, government, corporate, not for profit, or the multitude of organizations that I serve today. It is essential that I'm clear on what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then to marshal the resources from no apologies, the studies that I've been through, the people that I've networked with at ASQ, and to tailor them so that they are actionable for the organizations I'm working with. No apologies. But it's up to us to ensure that we're credible as the practitioners that bring the information to those clients, our peers, direct reports, or the C-suite. We've got to ensure that we are credible in their eyes, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, when I said it's great to be back, I'd like to just reflect upon, some of you may have been there in the not too distant past. We had another webinar that was associated with getting buy-in from the C-suite. And I'm going to show you a few of the talking points that we covered back then. I'm not going to go into detail, but I want to invite you to go and take a look. Here's the reference for this information. It's on a YouTube channel, so you can go back there and take a look at it now. Now, the point is this, is that we covered some information back then, and thank you very much for the feedback, because it sounds like some of y'all are making some really great headway with that information. But we're going to build upon that for the next 45 minutes in this webinar today. So we're going to take that macro perspective, and we're going to distill that into to bring it home right to me and you. We're the ones who breathe life into this thing, and it's our credibility that's going to help us to get that engagement, help others to buy into our ideas. Last time we met, we talked about tampering. That is trying to influence or fix a system that you know nothing about. Tampering. Dr. Deming calls it tinkering. You got a hobby? Great. Tinker and tamper all you want. But if you are a professional, meaning you get paid to do what you do, we kind of expect you understand the systems. Now, systems thinking is nothing new to us quality practitioners. It's fundamental to improving organizations is to identify and map the systems, identify cycle times, independent dependent variables, inputs, throughputs, etc. Tampering, we covered that. Fundamentals, that's what it's all about. What's the difference between little leaguers and professionals? The professionals have mastered the fundamentals. That's all it takes, is to understand the fundamentals. We talked about that. And how much practice? 10,000 hours. Some of the data out there, the research revealed 10,000 hours to become proficient at something. So the challenge for all of us back then and even today is, how many hours do you have exercising the fundamentals of the systematic approach to organizational performance? We talked about that back then. The competence ladder. 4 rungs. Feel free to Google any of this information for more details. The competence ladder, at the lowest level, I don't know what I don't know. Gee, I did not know that there was characteristics of admired leaders that is based on empirical research that has been conducted with employees around the world, hundreds of thousands. You're going to learn about that today. The competence ladder, I did not know what I did not know, is the first level of the competence ladder. But then the next level is you're going to forget it, is conscious incompetence. And that's where now I know, but I may not be that good at it yet. Well, that's where practice comes in. We're just moving into that realm. Then we move into conscious competence. Okay, Joe, now I understand what a credible leader is and the characteristics of admired leaders and how important values are in the way that I shape my day-to-day interactions with people. But I still have to work at it until finally you get to the highest level on the competence ladder, and that's unconscious competence. I don't even have to think about it. First thing I do, mission, vision, values, goals, objectives, milestones. What's the corporate culture expected of the organization? I don't even think about it. And if it's not clear, I'll define it myself. Competence ladder, we talked about that. Busy executives, you could probably finish the statement. Busy executives not only appreciate a staff member who identifies challenges or problems, but also identifies solutions. I know some of y'all were saying that right as I was about to say it as well. That's the doctrine of completed staff work. Credible leaders, credible quality practitioners. We don't just bring problems, we bring recommendations and solutions. Now, how we package those solutions, being mindful that as an extrovert, that's me, probably picked that up by now, that as an extrovert, if I'm working with a leader who's an introvert, I got to back it down quite a bit. We talked about that in the last seminar. The Myers-Briggs type indicator, extrovert versus introverts. Another one of the key portions of that is a judger or perceiver, judging or perceiving, not to be confused with judgmental. Judging, very organized. If I'm a P, meaning I'm open to possibilities and things, rather artsy, if you will, but I'm trying to pitch my idea to a person that's a J, I better have all of the details mapped out. That's what credible people do. Identify what are those goals, objectives, and milestones in a strategic plan or a business plan, and then understanding our current performance levels as reported in an annual report or a performance report. These are required documents of publicly traded organizations, but also government agencies as well in the United States. We talked about these things in the last workshop. Just wanted to hit them real quick, and I invite you to take a look at the reference there from that ASQ webinar back in November a couple of years ago. There's also the YouTube channel there. Take a look. What are we going to cover? Well, we're going to talk about a few things and distill that information and bring it right home for you. Don't forget the challenge. The challenge is I'm doing my part. Come to the table with yours. I want to encourage you to consider if you hear something and it is a learning. Man, Joe, I didn't know that. You know, that's a good one. Send it to us in the chat window there. Just send it on in. Hey, I learned something there. That was good. We'd like to hear that from you. If you have a question, you heard it, send it in the chat window. Then we'll take a look at that. It's a little easier to manage, everybody trying to chime in. But here's another one that's very important, a struggle. If you hear something, you say, whoa, I get what you're saying, Doc, but man, you know, my corporate culture is such that I'm not sure I'm gonna be, or I tried that and it didn't work. Go ahead and send that in. I'm gonna struggle with that. Send it on in, learnings, questions, and struggles. So keep that in mind as we're moving forward. But most importantly, identify at least one thing from the next 35, 40 minutes that we're gonna spend together that you can use right away. If you haven't learned something already, who knows? Maybe you did. Here's what we're gonna cover. We're going to talk about at the highest level, what are the organizational values and the competencies? How well do we know them? And what's the relevance of those two lists to my credibility in getting buy-in to the ideas that I'm floating? We're going to talk about your values. What does the research reveal when it comes to the credibility of a practitioner, quality excellence practitioner? I submit you're a leader, and for good reason. In the most fundamental terms, leadership is influence, and all of us are influencers. The challenge, the question that we must ask ourselves and answer, what kind of an influence am I having? Is it a positive one? Or when people know I'm going to be coming to a meeting, they kind of switch off, find other things to do. Values, relevance to our credibility as leaders. Then we're going to put that together and see how it relates to the performance, our day-to-day deportment of daily duties and responsibilities, and the results that we're trying to achieve. How's that sound? I hope if that's what you signed up for, then you're in the right place. If not, well, then time to go. Glad you're here. Hey, so let's take a look at a few things. Let's hit this very important fundamental precept here. Remember, fundamentals. That's the difference between novices and pros. We mastered the fundamentals. You forgive me, just briefly, a little shopkeeping matter here is the ASQ folks have my mobile phone, so I'll kind of check. If I check my watch from time to time, it's because I'm looking to see in case I got a message from them. That's what I'm doing. So, FYI. Hey, I was working for a corporation, talking about values here, and this is an important concept here as I tee this up. And word got out that that morale was at an all-time low, and it was a corporate headquarters. And I happen to have a high level of morale in my division, which we're going to talk about here as we move through. And you know, I had staff workers that arrived to work early. They weren't watching the clock to leave at the end of the day. I wasn't, you know, a taskmaster. So there was some high levels of engagement and morale. And so he called me in, the vice president, and said, "Hey, the CEO says I got a problem with morale here." And I said, "Yeah, well, I can't say I disagree. There are some real grumblings in different areas of the organization." He says, "Well, I'd like for you to build a course. Can you build a course to fix it, to improve it, and strengthen it?" And I said, "Yes, I can. I can do that." And he said, "Okay." And then I asked him, "How do you define morale?" Hey, folks, now look, no matter what you're doing as a quality or excellence practitioner, if we're not clear, have a mutual understanding of fundamental definitions of what does success look like, and in this case, it's just a matter of understanding the definition, we're on shaky ground. And so I did define it. We moved forward. It was a great program. So I'm advocating that values are an essential component, and there's empirical evidence to support this, and we're going to talk about it. That the values, I'm getting an echo here. I think somebody might have opened their mic. The values are fundamental. So what are values and how are they defined? Well, you know, you see them on the walls in a lot of different places, and I wonder how many people actually take the time to read them. I'll tell you who does. Credible leaders do. They do, and their direct reports and peers, they might even see them standing in front of the list of core values that are on the wall, and they'll be reading them. And I think you'll agree, and in my experience, it's held to be true. Somebody's got an open mic there. Somebody's got an open mic.
Sorry, guys. Someone from the attendees has joined through a phone. For some reason, the system is not unmuted. So please unmute yourself. That's okay now.
There we go. That sounds good. Being authentic and genuine and authentic, really reviewing the core values, working to internalize them. There's something about that visual image to others. So here's how ASQ defines the fundamental beliefs. You could read it yourself there. These are the things that drive our behavior. The leadership challenge, which we're going to be talking about today, is that enduring beliefs divided into two categories, means and ends. These are the things we do today. The means and the ends is that achievement of that vision, the thing that we're trying to achieve in the future. In the end, it's our personal bottom line, the things we will not let happen in the organization. Half-ass work, mediocrity, average, get mine before you get yours. I don't know that those are on any organization's website. Probably not the values associated with the ones you're working at either. These are the things that we've got to be aligned with. And when we are, and we live them ourselves, then it supports our credibility as leaders and helps us to get the buy-in from folks, direct reports, peers, or executives. Here's a list of some of the values, and you've seen them. And I've done my research, like I said before. And you know what? Some of the values that I've never seen on organizations' websites: sarcasm, not a value. Cynicism, not a value on any organization I know of. Bombastic, pessimistic. Those are not some of the values that I've seen yet. They seem to manifest themselves. And there's reason for it. I get it. The physiological component, the survival mechanisms for more mammalistic and reptilian origins, et cetera, but not us, not credible leaders. We stay away from them and we work with the good values. Remember this, these are not values that credible leaders emulate, carry. We don't even joke about them. And don't forget, values are our bottom line. So when we hear it and see it, we step in and we take action. Carefully, of course. No one's here to sacrifice their career over it. Make sure you know what you're doing. Work with a mentor coach that can help you know how to do competencies. So what are these things, man? You know, those are the outward expression of these techniques, skills, experiences that we exercise that ensure the success of the organizations. These are the things we expect. Here's a definition from the Baldrige, the national U.S. national quality criteria, which is, by the way, adopted and implemented and tailored in countries all around the world. And so, as a matter of fact, speaking of countries that have adopted these concepts and that they've been living them for longer than the United States, and many of them. Here's one from the ASQ in Australia. There's the definition of the competencies there. Why is that essential for us? Because credible leaders, we do the homework. These words that float around, we're clear on what they mean. A colleague and I we're gonna write a book, words you pretend to know in meetings, but really don't. And so you could look them up. Regretfully, some were our quality and excellence practitioners. They would use the term, but really didn't know what they meant. What do you think that did to their credibility? What do you think how much time they spent in the C-suite with the decision makers, with direct reports coming to them and asking them for the next thing that they're supposed to be doing? It wasn't as strong. It wasn't as often. Not us, not those today on this webinar. We're going to be clear on those. A little more granularity here. The Society for Human Resource Management, anybody that's competed for a Baldrige Award knows that in the measurement component, there is the comparison of our abilities to other organizations, benchmarks, comparative analysis, and SHRM has done a fantastic job of distilling some leadership competencies that we can consider as quality practitioners. And let's face it, folks, the HR division in the organization you're working with, if they've got SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, by the way, that's what that stands for, and others, you know, they know the SHRM folks and what they're doing. So real credible source. The other values, there they are, the Baldrige core competencies. What's not to like about an organization that has customer-driven excellence, value in employees and partners, societal responsibility? That's a lot of good stuff, man, and it's more than some utopian dream organization. There are real organizations that live it, man, and I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to be a part of them. And where, in the absence of these core values, did my part. I'm the executive officer. I'm the training manager. I'm the director of this division. So it's my job to put the pieces where they belong, to equip my direct reports, nurture, engage my peers, and help them to be a success as well. And in the eyes of the right people, done correctly. This isn't bootlicking or brown nosing. Some of us don't have to because we're just that good. We know what we're doing. We know how to apply it, and we get results. That's the good stuff. We don't make people look bad. They do that all by themselves. But we help them to understand what it takes to be a success. So we're not keeping it all to ourselves. I like this about the ASQ HD&L. They've got a set of core competencies that are surrounded around the body of knowledge that we expect of leaders in excellence and quality. We're reworking that and tailoring it a little bit, but there you go. That's available for us as well. Point. Use that information. Tether our day-to-day activities into some expectation. Now, I submit, many of the mature organizations people online right now that are listening, you probably already have values and competencies that you've identified. I encourage you to make sure that if you don't know them, to go and learn what they are and to make them viable, actionable for your day-to-day activities. Thanks for listening. Let's move into the next critical section. Now, in a doctorate, you're really held to a standard. I remember people asking me, Joe, the doctorate, you finished it, what was that like? And I always tell them, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing for the enlightenment, but it's a curse for the enlightenment. So to explain it a little more, is like, wow, independent, dependent variables, construct validity, cause and effect relationships. And then when you couple that together with QSM and organizational leadership and the various leadership philosophies, wow, it's a complete package, man. And I make no apologies. I love the experience that I had. And any of you online right now, I hope that you share that experience. If some of y'all are on your way, trudging through to get that dissertation done, you have my respect, man. And let me know if there's anything I could do to help you. So when it comes to credibility as a leader, Dr. Joe Fierro is always looking for the empirical evidence to support my position. In the absence of empirical evidence, sure, anecdotal's okay. I mean, we make a lot of decisions on anecdotal information, but I'm not going to stop. I'll still look for the cause and effect, the correlation, or the causation, even better, of the various activities that are underway that are yielding the kinds of results that we're getting, desirable or undesirable. Either or, give me a starting point. So here's what the research is revealing for us. Hundreds of thousands of employees around the world from the Leadership Challenge. I work off the 6th edition of the Leadership Challenge book in my leadership component of the workshops I do. I like to think of myself as an excellence performance alchemist, where we're pulling together various information that's out there. You guys get a copy of that. You find it on Amazon. They're not expensive, and a lot of good empirical evidence in there. So, and they talk about the research that was done, hundreds of thousands of 30, 40 years of research, employees around the world. What are the characteristics of the most admired leaders that they've worked for? And they took the authors took the characteristics and they codified them into these 5 practices. Exemplary leaders, these 5 practices include modeling the way, they're attached to their values, they found their voice, they inspire a shared vision, that future state. People want to be a part of it. They embrace it. They challenge the process, which we are all very good at in the quality and excellence world of work that we do. That's what we do. Problem solving is one thing, but you know what the latest is? Problem identification and prevention. Identification, it's going to happen. That's the latest, but we challenge the process to find those improvement opportunities. We enable others to act. Now that goes to empowerment. Now this is a tricky one for some leaders, because they don't know how to delegate, or they're a little concerned about delegating. You know who you are. It's okay. We've all been there. And but there are ways to rise above that, enabling others to act. There are certain things we do. And then finally, we encourage the heart. It's more than just a attaboy, attagirl. Nope, there's more than that. Helping people to understand what they did supported the culture that we're trying to reinforce in the organization, as well as get the results. The one we're going to look at here for the next 15 minutes or so is modeled away. I submit, in my experience, this is the one that when we master, really supports our credibility as leaders, earns invitations into the C-suite, gets the respect and admiration of our direct reports. Those aren't fluff words here either, nor are they words to be minimized. We should be striving for the respect and admiration of our direct reports, as well as peers and others. Gaining confidence, gaining trust, these are good things. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Don't let them be sarcastic, cynical, bombastic, pessimistic. That's not on the list of values for the organization. We modeled away. So let's drill down a little bit on that. The 5 practices and 10 commitments. We just talked about that a little bit, and forgive me, I'll kind of go back on that one there. If you look at the work in the leadership challenge, you'll see that not only the 5 practices, but 10 commitments, almost sounds like 10 commandments. And so they distill those down to a little more actionable items, things that we can wrap our arms around. And so we'll move forward from there. It's the kind of thing that gets us success where others struggle. But you know, the way we are, those of us, you know, that sign on for Q&E responsibilities, chances are it wasn't our primary job. It was something that we accepted to do in addition to our primary functions and duties. And there was something that we were drawn to, something inside, and probably, you know, we didn't join the organization to fail. We know that there's a better way, and we think we can help do something about it. And so we stepped up to the plate. And so as we move forward in building our credibility by studying this particular behavior trait of exemplary leaders, I respect that about you and what you've done. So 10 commitments, they help to distill that in a little bit more granularity. Back to the research that was done. In order to model the way, the authors realized, and I believe this to be true, and I've seen it in my own experience, is that what does it look like? What does a credible leader look like? And so the research revealed this fairly decent list. I mean, they had a exhaustive list, and here were the commonalities, the characteristics of the leaders that employees admired, and whether they were direct reports or seniors. This is what they distilled it down to. Now, as you look at this list, the numbers there represent a percentage of the respondents. And you can see here that competent, forward-looking, honest, and inspiring are at the top of the list. Now, all of these are important just because they're not on the top of the list. But these were the 4 that surfaced as higher than the 50% of the respondents. Now, to give this just a little more clarity, a little granularity, if you will, what does it mean to be admired leader, to be considered a credible source? This means that the employees, even your executives or your bosses, they willingly come to work with you. They willingly seek you out for your advice and counsel. And here are 4 of the characteristics. There's the answers to the test. Is that you're competent. You know the mission, vision, values, the goals, objectives, and milestones that we're trying to achieve. You do the research on the annual reports. You know the challenges that are facing the organization, and there are many. You're forward looking. So not only do you recognize those, but you see where we're trying to go. You are able to distill that direction into something actionable for your team. And if you don't have a team, for yourself in the way that you carry yourself daily, that you're honest about things. If you screwed up, you admit it. It stops here. I ain't passing this off. I'm not firing that person. I'm not going to distance you from myself. I'm honest that, you know, all good leaders recognize that there must be a systems failure. Q&E practitioners, we do that naturally, but we're honest. Even if it's, you know, fall on our own sword, you just admit it and pick yourself up, brush yourself off. You all know people like that. They admit it when they fail. They don't pass it off to everybody else. It's just not according to the data what makes a credible leader. And they're inspirational. They inspire others, willing to work. And I hope that you share this experience that I once had. I read a few times. No apologies. When my staff member would come to me and she told me, I don't know what you heard about me before you got here, but it was true. I really didn't see the value. I mean, it's a job. I come to work and get paid. I didn't feel any engagement. But since you started helping us understand the purpose, the noble aspect of the world of work we were in, it had to do with energy exploration in the Gulf of Mexico. When you helped me to understand that we are bringing energy to the world in an environmentally conscious manner, and that our division is responsible, not unlike the hand that rocks the cradle, we were the training division. And so we were part of the onboarding process. We're the ones who help set the tone right from the first 24 hours of a new hire's employment, which is critical. And what they got during that first 24 hours working with us wasn't a bunch of fluff and discussions about nebulous concepts or how was your weekend, which are important, but was to start bringing them right into what are the values, the corporate culture we're expecting. Here's the opportunity you have to make a difference, not only in this corporation, but for the community that we're serving as well. So she cheerfully admitted that. And I hope that you all have a similar experience of what had to do with credibility, inspiration, being honest, competent, and forward looking, not the least of which included a succession plan, preparing other people to take my place sometime in the future or to help them to achieve what they wanted to do in the future, which was equally as important. Now, once we have identified the characteristics, the authors went a step further to identify the values, the relevance of the values, but not the organization's values. No, your personal values. The research revealed that the leaders who were most impactful in a positive way, most influential in a positive way, that drove the higher levels of engagement, not only understood the organization's values, they're on the wall, you got that, and internalized, not to minimize them, but their personal values, those personal bottom lines, the things that they believed in, that brought them to work, that drove their day-to-day behavior, were so well understood and in harmony with the organizations that it strengthened others' commitments to their ideas and the directions that they had set. Think about this. Personal values versus organization's values. I wonder if you would work at an organization where the employees' day-to-day responsibilities were to insult customers, were to be demeaning toward them, condescending toward them, and a whole litany of other negative, in my opinion, professional opinion, behaviors and ideology that are, I find a bit repulsive. Would you work there? Because there is an organization that does that. It's a restaurant, nameless. But as soon as you walk in the door, they say, "What do you want?" And no smile, and they just start hammering you. Get your hands off the table. What do you mean you want a napkin? And that's their mantra. Now, for some of us who may feel like, I don't really care for that. Well, it's likely because it doesn't match, it's not in harmony with your personal values. Because you have things like respect, you probably have things like customer focus, and other things that are, a little more community-minded and less primitive. And there's some empirical evidence to support that, more research revolving around physiology of human performance and motivation, and neuro leadership, and the like. More on that another time. Point. Hate to say it, but even that particular restaurant where that's their norm, there are organizations that that kind of mental set has creeped into the culture, where people who don't have a position power, they're not directors, managers, they're not supervisors, but they have personal power. They have power over other people because of, for a whole host of reasons. They're very dominant in their personality, and that they may have driven, and this is negative stuff, they driven into the culture these negative behaviors. And then you find yourself at their mercy because they're not in alignment with your personal values. You know that their behavior doesn't match the core values that are written on the wall. So you're conflicted. I wonder, on a scale of 1 to 10, how productive are you? How productive is the rest of the organization? I submit they'll probably say, oh, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm just being sarcastic. That's what they say. Not a core value. You do that stuff other places, but that's not the way we roll here. Take a look at this graph here, wrapping things up here, folks, getting close to the end of the moment. Here we're talking about leader credibility. And this particular component is about your affiliation with the values. And as you look at this 2x2 matrix, this first quadrant here is the organization's values, and then clarity of your personal values. And what the research revealed on a scale of 1 to 7, that when the respondents were clear on the organization's values, but not clear on their personal values, they were low. The level of commitment that they had, and I submit probably the direct reports and other people around them, was mediocre. Yeah, 4.875 on a scale of 7. Okay, we're getting by. Which reminds me of the Gallup organization's work with Q13, Q12, excuse me, where you have 30% actively engaged, and then 16% actively disengaged, and then this middle group that's just kind of coasting. You know, they come to work, yeah, all right, they get work done. But when people were clear on their personal values, and that's the challenge for you folks, if I asked you what are your personal values, what would you say? Do you know? And so this is something that credible leaders are clear about. And you can see here that their level of commitment to the organization was much higher. I submit also, and by the way, if you review the research that's been done there, the results were also admirable, desirable. Dr. Joe, can you fix morale? We see you are able to do that over here. Joe, can you teach other people how to distill a strategy into actionable plans at your level? I see you're already doing it as an executive officer. Can you teach other people to do that? That was because of the personal values that I had. I wanted to do good. I wanted to do good things that make a difference, not only in the lives of the customers or the communities that we serve, but in the lives of the employees who go home every day. And it was those personal values together with the authority of the organization's values that facilitated my ability to take action and not just let the pieces lie where they may fall. Higher levels, understanding my own personal values. One step further. Following through on the promises and the commitments that we make, here's what the data revealed. That this is almost just, you don't need a doctorate to know this. But when the leader follows through on the promises and the commitments we make, we have a much higher level of trust, not only in our direct reports, our peers as well, but even seniors, superiors. They'll take note. It may not always be obvious, but we keep doing our part to make a difference in the organization. At the end of the day, when we go home, we know we did the right things. That when our employees go home at the end of the day and they visit with their loved ones, how was your day? They say things like, you know, I think my boss, I think they really get it. You know, it's a whole new organization here. Culture of excellence, not mediocrity. really sound values. They're breathing life into it. As cynicism and sarcasm, that stuff has creeped into families. Unfortunately, it can be a whole nother challenge for us, but we work in our sphere of influence, sphere of control, and that includes the workplace. We as practitioners in the excellence world of work. Now, how we do this, how do we make a difference in the organization? This is what we talked about. Being clear on the organization's values. Go get them, man. Go read them. In the absence of written values, take a look around and ask yourself, well, what are they here? Talk to the executives if you get an opportunity. What are the values that we're trying to emulate here? What are the competencies? Those things that we're expected to do well. That certainly is a fundamental component of succession plans, and not just as a quality excellence practitioner. Dr. Joe Fierro was a tactician on the front line doing service law enforcement in the Caribbean, migrant, human traffic, drug interdictions with teams. We had competencies, we had values. I made sure that I lived them, aligned my day-to-day activities with them. It caught the eye of the executives. They saw what I was doing. Then I breathed life into them and I helped my team to understand them. Slipshot, sarcasm, messing around with each other. We're here to do good stuff. But being clear on those also helped me to groom that future workforce. And that's got to be pretty appealing to folks who might be retiring in the next few years. Values and competencies, that's what we talked about. We distilled an understanding of how important our individual values are. We've got to be clear on those as well. Are our individual values in harmony with the organization? Have we adopted sarcasm and cynicism, pessimism as a mantra of our day-to-day performance and activity? Newsflash, probably taking a ding on your credibility as a leader. And you don't have to be outward about it either. It could be things in the way you're carrying yourself at different places, but that's not us, because we're committed to the good stuff. Baldrige core values, SHRM core values, HD&L core values, and the competencies associated with the body of knowledge. Individual values, we talked about that. And all of that came together to support our credibility as a leader as a result of the research done by the authors of the Leadership Challenge material. It certainly is the experience that I've had. I believe it to be true. It's been part and parcel of my doctoral research, but more importantly, in the day-to-day work that I do now. And that is, just like you, to get the kind of results that we need, that we want, that at the end of the day, when we go home, we feel good about it. Our people aren't in a hurry to go home, and they're looking forward to coming back the next day. Just like I am, looking forward to hearing about the good things that you're surely going to accomplish and seeing you all again sometime in the future. Thanks for listening. That's the end of the presentation for today. Let's hear if you've got any learnings, questions, or struggles. I'm happy to entertain any that you have. Thank you very much.
What am I supposed to say now? You tell me. After this beautiful speech, which is heartfelt from my side at least, and I'm pretty sure from our attendees as well. I really thank you, Joe, for coming back and as usual, sharing all your experience and passionate belief in what you do, and that comes through very, very easily.
Yes.
So that's very authentic, and especially in line with what we're actually sharing tonight. And I'd like to make sure everyone will get a copy of the presentation, as well as the recording will be in our YouTube video. Before I jump into the questions, so feel free, as Joe was saying, not just questions, but also if you had any learnings tonight, any struggles that you'd like us to explore a bit more in these 10 minutes that we have left. And of course, you can reach out to Dr. Joe as well if you have additional.
Absolutely.
So let's see some of the questions that came through. One of the comments is that the companies, it looks like they're reestablishing their purpose. It comes with what you were saying in the very beginning. Do you feel like there is a need to reestablish the purpose? Is there a reason because they are not aligned maybe properly with what they're trying to do? Have you noticed this need from the market, I'd say, to even come and ask for help for doing that.
The first part of the statement you had, was it about purpose? Did I hear that correctly? Say it again, please.
Reestablishing the purpose of the organization. Like some
Oh,
companies are trying to reestablish that.
oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, I would back up just a little bit, or to offer a little more clarity on that. I guarantee you, they have a purpose. The founder, the CEO, the entrepreneur, they have a purpose. It's in their mind. And our job is to get it out of there and then codify it, write it down, so that we can share it. Yeah, yeah. Papyrus paper from way back when. And being able to record things was an important part of ensuring continuity and consistency. But as an executive coach, which I really enjoy, and I submit Q&E practitioners, man, we're in a good place for that kind of thing, is to help the executive understand that we got to get that a little more, forgive the use of the word granularity, of your purpose. What is it that you'd like for us to achieve? Because man, we're committed to doing it. Folks are getting paid, and I know if I asked all the employees today at your workplace, how many of y'all came here to get fired, make the boss angry, get sideways with your peers? Let me see by a show of hands. No one would raise their hands. But things happen, and I submit being clear on that purpose. Absolutely great question, man. But the challenge is, like you're saying, if it's not clear, well, that's where we got to do our research. What does the business plan say? What is our deliverable? Whatever that deliverable is, if it's a tangible or intangible, what does it do? And then I would start working out a statement, a doctrine of completed staff work. Then I would make an appointment with the executive or somebody up the chain of command, chain of management, and say, this is what I came up with, but this is so important to ensuring our effectiveness and efficiency, to driving higher levels of performance and profitability, or to ensure the needs of our constituents are met. I've got to make sure I'm clear on this, boss. What do you think about this?
So what do you think? Because it makes me think, like, I feel like there might be good helpers out there that could even help to build a fake purpose. So don't we risk into, maybe we do have these CEOs or owners that are trying to sell as if they have this authentic purpose, but at the end they mostly care about the money and that's it. And then that gets, not being authentic, it gets perceived from people, because people can tell, as you said, lacking of role modeling. Do they really believe in those purposes? Like, I've been in multiple companies. I haven't seen many that really, really care about this whole idea. We want things to work perfectly, the excellence and this and that. And yes, you can sell it very nicely, but then when you work there, you can tell.
Yeah. So, excellent point. And I'll reflect back on the example I already used. When I took the responsibility for the offshore exploration company as a training manager for the Americas, no one else was doing this, and it was not, the executives certainly weren't. When I went and asked one of the vice presidents about the mission and the vision, his response was, I think we did one of those in an offsite, but I'm not sure whatever happened to that. This was a family member of the founder of the organization. So immediately, Joe Fierro, I take note. There's a disconnect, and the buy-in to the relevance of that was obvious. There's little buy-in, so that was good enough for me. I found it, and it was in a closet. They had these great framed mission and vision values, and I got them out. And I said, well, you know what? In my division, this is what we're going to do. And so even if in the absence of those, like I said, I had to go find them. They were in closets stuffed in the back behind bookshelves and things. But in the absence, they never did that at all. Well, it's still your department. You're still the division chief, so you can do, or department head, or even just for yourself, if you're an individual, you can just you can write your own. And I'm hearing, part of it is like a values mismatch. The organization's values, they're either not living up to them, they're insincere, they're not authentic. But that's important to me. Then I keep looking for an
If
organization
you
that
go to
will
digital
respect that.
companies, it's kind of funny to even read them. I actually found myself reading technical digital companies, transformation companies. They mostly
Yeah.
have all the same, making their lives easier with technology. If you read them clear cut, it's the same thing. I'm like, you're not giving me the core of why do you even start working on this? I think
Let me, yeah.
bigger social responsibility or something that it should be more than I have the code. Everyone now can find somebody to code.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Let me tell you the next chapter of that story with that company I was talking about. That vice president saw what I was doing, and then it got to the CEO, and they said, "Why isn't everyone doing that?"
Mm-hmm.
Then there was this shift that started taking place, and that's when it started to come in, because they saw that getting results, higher levels of engagement, walking the talk, and the credibility as a leader, even at my management level, many levels down from the CEO, but heard about it. And it was at the board of directors. I don't mind telling you, I was just working with a client just a few weeks ago, and the CEO came to one of the workshops that I was doing, and he said, "That's the stuff we should be doing. You will see him again." And here was the deal: no one else was doing it, but they're waiting for somebody who can do it. They've got a cynicism and sarcasm. They're trying to figure it out. Some of them are trying to figure it out on their own.
You're rephrasing one of the questions we have here about having this resistance from top or bottom level if you are trying to
Yeah.
do it. And as you're saying, at
Mhm.
some point somebody will hear. And I've always been saying out loud to the companies I was working that half will love me, half will hate me. Like I was
Yeah.
hoping it would be like at least 51% that would love me, but because I wanted to stick to what I do and how I think and value into it, but I didn't expect many to like. And I felt like the right people will like this because that's all you need, the right people,
Sure. Yeah.
the informal leaders.
You
So
get them.
another
Yep.
question we have, because we can talk forever between you and I, you know that.
Please go
But
ahead.
we'll try to cover more. So first of all, we would like to congratulate Deborah. She's also working on her PhD. It's 1 year and a
Hey, all
half.
right.
So
Finally.
congratulations, Deborah. We want to invite you
Let
as
me know
well.
how I can help.
That's great. Thanks, Joe, for that. And another question is, how do you respond to the limited replication of research results? Leadership research is filled with contradictions. How did you decide which studies to refer to? Well, my
Sure.
favorite is servant leadership. I don't know. I'll pass it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Hey, well, listen, we should always be exploring not only our position on a particular matter. Let's stick with leadership on a particular subject associated with leadership, but we should also be looking at what is the contrary position. And so, for those of us those who pursue doctorates and just progressive learners. I was required to not only make my position, let me rephrase that, uh, show the results of my studies, but I was also required to show what are the counter arguments, or what is the opposing data associated with my findings, and then what I was going to do about it now. And so, you get into a Ford Chevy argument, we just Coke or
Best
Pepsi,
leadership,
you just don't do that. So you figure out, well, what's the part that I own and that I can embrace and I can breathe life into, and then you find that balance. Now, get a mentor, man. Make sure you got a coach, because you said a couple other things. I've had got men who were senior managers to me put their fingers in my chest like this, it really threatening, and say, "You keep all that quality explanative to yourself." And I said, now I
I'm glad
knew,
you
I
agree.
knew though, I knew that this was where the organization was headed, Q&E.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
said, well, I don't know what I'm going to tell your boss, but I'm sure we
Mhm.
can find a workaround here. I think we should have an offline conversation. 2 months later, the same guy was offering an apology to the entire workforce because he said he was wrong. He just didn't understand how to use this doctrine and how so much of it is rooted in our history. We just lost our way. We're bringing it back. We help them to find the way, light the way.
At the core human level, at the end of the day, we keep speaking about in leadership, but we also can mention that there is also situational leadership, which talks about
Yes,
actually changing
yes,
styles
yes.
depending on the situation. So we are at 10 o'clock. We may take another question, but I want to remind everyone that we will have a kind of different survey this time. Of course, we'll have the survey about the webinar. It's great to have some feedback on that. But next year, we're trying to make some more value add, find new ways to deliver value to you. So we're trying to think between either a conference in addition to maybe some quick office hours, like ask your questions or bring a challenge that you have. We're thinking about more panel discussions to have more different mindset from different panelists on different topics. So I did send some questions on the survey itself to hear you from the perspective of what kind of topic you would like in those different way of delivering. So we're trying to shift things around and try to see if we can add more value in addition to traditional webinars. So let's see, let's just get some feedback on that.
Good
And I might take one more question.
Okay.
Here we go. We do have a book suggestion. Peter Schultz, Hire the Integrity and Train the Skills. Again, we
Yes.
go back to basics, but
Peter
it looks like
Schultz.
repeat.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
How do well, enjoy the presentation. Would like to hear some brief thoughts on how to penetrate leadership culture stuck on outdated mind management practices. That's kind of change resistance and change
Sure.
management.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
also takes
Sure.
time.
Remember, the word at the beginning, if you go back and watch that other webinar, you're going to see the word tampering or tinkering. And that's when you're trying to influence a system you know nothing about. The good news, now we practitioners, Q&E, we're systems thinkers, systems approach. Good news, there's a systematic approach to even change management. Now, I'm certified in ProSci, ADCAR, awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. Some of you may have heard of that. It's really well known. I get calls from Lexus dealers out of the blue. Hey, we see you got ADCAR. Would you want to come over and work for us tonight? Anyway, oh,
We get too
got a
many
Lexus?
calls,
Do I
though,
get a
right? That's
Lexus? If
hard
I get a
time finding.
Lexus, here's the point. You'll learn about the systems approach to that change management, and the culture has to be right. You've got to have the reinforcement stuff there. You change the people or you change the people. You either help them see the light or you cause them to feel the heat. So folks, be not misinformed. Q&E, we do everything to give people an opportunity to do the right things, but eventually we might find this is not the right place for you to work. So let me help you find someplace out to work. Let me love you out the door and find someplace else to work because it's not here. In my experience, they get on
Yeah.
board. Yeah, nah, there's a lot to that, folks. But those are just some high points that usually I'm tapping some emotion here intentionally.
I can tell. You're bringing some emotions on memories on me. I feel like sometimes it worked only when at least the core leadership level was on board. So you had some strong buy-in that really wanted that. Or when informal leaders advocate for quality or leadership authenticity values they had in them by showing some quick wins or some examples, then kind of we build the
Absolutely, yeah.
culture around, and then it
Fundamental.
went up.
That's
Or
fundamental. Yep.
what you just mentioned, it came to an end. I tried up, I tried down, didn't work, and then I said goodbye because at some point you need to think
Yeah.
about your values as well, like what you
Good for
mentioned was.
you. Life's not a long time, man. we make the
Rather
best that we can.
Okay, Joe,
Those
this
are
was great.
great
Would love to
questions.
stay in touch. and have more opportunities next year to find new ways actually to deliver. So it'll be great to have you back.
Oh,
We
it would
do
be
have
my
one
pleasure.
more webinar already scheduled for November. So go ahead and check my ASQ community page. We have posted that as well. This time we have the director of ASQ of EMEA. So that's great to have Nancy, and we'll be talking about unlocking the potential of teams through social performance management. So we do stay in
I like
the
it.
ways of social and
I like
humanity.
it. Oh yeah, that's important.
Thank you so much,
Good
Joe.
deal. Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for hanging around, everybody. I see there's still a lot of people there. Stay in
Yep.
touch. Don't be a stranger.
Take care, everyone. Good luck.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.